here
All
we
right,
go.
you rolling?
Yep.
All right, clap for synchronization. Every time.
Every time.
So George, you got offered a. That's gonna throw me off. Okay.
What?
Okay. Okay.
I'm still recording.
Future Keilan, you're going with the first clap. Okay. That's none of these. These are all meaningless to me. I'm not gonna need these. Okay.
All right.
For movies, music, books, and more, join Keilan, Noah, and George, your ultimate entertainment hub. Welcome to the Everything Club.
All right. Shall we start this thing?
Okay. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Everything Club. I am here with my two favorite bromances, Keilan and George. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Well, I am Keilan, who used to be your only bromance until this last weekend. But yeah,
I think it stemmed a little bit farther back than that. Let's not forget the couples game.
Oh, this is true. Yeah, listener, Noah and George won the couples game against me and my partner of almost 8 years, which is very annoying.
Listener, let me tell you, that was an interesting experience. That was wild.
But yes, introductions. I am Keilan Morrissey, writer, filmmaker, poet, photographer, lover of entertainment and arts, and co-host of the Everything Club. George, who are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm George. I'm an engineer and entrepreneur and a lover of all things in the entertainment industry. I would say that I'm really excited to be talking about this particular topic today.
Absolutely.
Because I think it has definitely been one of my favorite pieces of entertainment that's come out of this particular studio that we're going to be talking about in the last few years.
Indeed.
All right, and I am Noah. I am also, as you can tell, a co-host of this very podcast. I am an electrician in real life, and I just love hanging with my bros, my bromances, my cuddle buddies, anything and everything under the sun. And Keilan is going to be salty for a little bit, so I'm just going to leave it. But today, the piece of entertainment that George was talking about was Ted Lasso, the hit TV show on Apple TV Plus starring Jason Sudeikis, and I don't remember any of their other names. However, they all did a fantastic job, and we all absolutely love this show, and I cannot wait to get into it with you guys.
Absolutely, man. I'm super excited. Ted Lasso has been one of our favorite pieces of media that we've enjoyed over the years. George, I believe you were Ted Lasso at the Halloween party a couple years back.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I was. I didn't even have to try too hard, listener. It was a little bit interesting, listener. That was definitely fun. I had all the costume elements right there in my closet. So it was excellent. That costume came together at the price of a mustache. So it was quite good.
And some printer ink.
That's true. Actually, wait, I printed it for free. So.
Oh, sick. All right.
Nice.
Well, before we dive too deep into today's topic, gentlemen, how are we doing?
Well, I hear
No,
you
George
two.
needs to go first.
You two have just been merry.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Life has been pretty excellent. The
Keilan is just over there in the corner seething.
I'm going on my very first work trip.
Don't act like that's the most important development in your life
week.
right now.
Keilan's never gonna get over this.
I recently just launched. I just launched my website, which I've been working on for a little bit. I built it from the ground up, which has been really fun, and I'm hosting it as well, using all of the actual back-end cloud server tech that actual companies use to do their real stuff. So it's been a really fun learning experience for me. Additionally, Noah and I did in fact meet up at a baseball game, which is why Keilan is fuming in the corner like a little baby boy, and
a little baby weenie boy.
and that was excellent. I actually have several photos of that
Yes.
that the listener you won't be able to see. But they'll definitely impact Keilan over the course of the night. So I definitely wanted to include those.
Yeah, he's showing them to me
Which
now.
one's that?
listener.
Which one's that, George? Oh yeah, that's a good one. I've never seen a more genuine smile on my face.
This is destroying me inside. Listener. So I was out of town, and out of the blue, I receive this selfie of George and Noah together at a Cardinals game.
I would like to address something as you keep going on with this story, but yeah keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Well, actually, it started with them separately sending pictures of them being at the same Cardinals game, and then they ended up linking up, and it was a rare Noah and George hangout independent of me, which I'm fine with that element of it. But then it just progressed into this secondary bromance, and Noah and I thought we had something special, but clearly that just corroded over the course of these 9 innings. So what did you want to address, Noah?
Okay, so when you say you were out of town, you were in Orlando, Universal Studios, with your girlfriend, and had the audacity to say, "You guys didn't invite us." You had this trip pre-planned.
I was
and
jealous.
got offended.
Keilan was really on vacation. He was like, geez, I'm getting such FOMO from this Cardinals game. This is crazy. I'm just at an amusement park with my significant other, and
Again,
I'm just
while he was already with someone else.
Yeah. No, I had to be like, babe, listen, I got to take a moment. I mean, this is a level of romantic action that I just can't experience anywhere else besides a St. Louis, Missouri Cardinals game with these boys. Yeah, I was out of town. I was at Orlando. I can give you guys a brief recap. Me and the lady went for our 8-year anniversary, and
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And we hit the main 2 Universal parks, which we've done before, but we also hit Volcano Bay, which is their water park, which was really cool. Never before experienced that. They have a ginormous man-made volcano with a big wave pool around it and a bunch of water slides and stuff. And we had, at the hotel we stayed at, we got early admission, and so we got to go early, and also not to mention the fact that it's September, so it's kind of the off season. So the rides, the waiting time for everything all around was very manageable, which was nice. And then we also did, for the first time ever, the Halloween Horror Nights, which is an after-hours thing where you go in the park and they have a dozen haunted houses set up. And we did a couple cool ones. There was one that was Ghostbusters themed that was pretty sick. And and then we hit our usual spots: Hogwarts, Hogsmeade, all the Wizarding World stuff, all the Marvel superhero stuff, and it was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well.
yeah. Moving on.
No, seriously, that I really would like to go back to Universal Studios. I didn't want to go with this as a segue again, so I didn't know what to say. But no, that sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I could go back to Universal Studios really, really soon.
When did you last go?
7th grade.
7th grade. Oh wow.
I think.
Yeah, boys, we gotta go once they open.
Yes, once they open the How to Train Your Dragon part of the park. Yes, that is when I'm planning on going next.
Yeah, they're opening, listener, a park called Epic Universe that is, I think, twice the size of both of their current parks combined. And it has a Nintendo World. It has Dark Universe with the classic monsters. It has How to Train Your Dragon. It has a couple others. And
honestly, it's like they had us in mind when they made this plan.
Exactly.
But again, congratulations on your 8 years now with your girlfriend. I don't know if she wants to be named, even though.
Yeah, no, Camille. It's public.
With Camille.
She's in all my movies. What are we talking about?
But you didn't mention her name.
Yeah, fair.
So I didn't know if there was,
Yeah.
We draw the line at the podcast.
I just try to keep my romantic lives separate, unlike somebody, but that's fine.
What are you talking? We act that way around Camille all the time. If anything, she's a third wheel to us. All right, so
this is sadly sometimes true. Okay, but boys, Noah, did you have any other updates that you wanted to share before we dive in?
Yes, actually. So yes, this hangout that we've been going on and on about with me and George.
Yeah.
It is being blown a little bit out of proportion. George just happened to text me being like, "Hey Noah, you at this game?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And so he came and sat with me, Abby, and Day Day for like 20 minutes. We talked. I told him some fun facts about Cardinals and baseball and all that. It really wasn't that much. So don't worry, babe. It's okay. It's all right, Pookie. But it was such a big deal because George and I have only ever hung out twice without Keilan. Keilan is the catalyst of this friendship between the two of us. And the only other time was like 2 years ago, actually, I believe now. When I graduated from college with my associate's degree. No, I guess that was last year.
It was 2023.
That was last year. That feels so long ago now. And he thought it was my birthday. So
showed up with a birthday cake with the wrong age on it.
Okay, now that isn't true.
No, he didn't show up with a birthday cake, but it was a wild experience, and to have it happen again after a year was just, we couldn't help but address it. So, but yeah, it was a great time. George, it was great running into you at the baseball game, and I say we are segueing.
Oh, hell yes.
Into today's topic, which again is Ted Lasso.
Absolutely.
And I would like to preface this whole episode from here on out by saying I am wildly unprepared. I have nothing in my notes. I have Ted Lasso and a dot. And
my God. No.
That is it. So I'm going to play it all by ear.
Man's just straight freestyling this one. All right.
And you know what? It's going to be my best episode yet.
Well, I would like to take a moment quickly to remind our listener of our format, of our sandwich, because I realize it's been a few episodes since we actually let the listener know kind of what it is that we do.
They're not here since day one. They don't deserve it.
I know, honestly. If you're not one of those 5 listeners at this point, I don't know what you're doing. So we're gonna hit you all with some light questions. We'll bounce around some easy breezy questions surrounding the topics of Ted Lasso. Then we're gonna jump into the meat of our sandwich, which is an open discussion of Ted Lasso, and then we're gonna end with a heavy question round for Ted Lasso, where we ask, deeper, more thought-provoking questions that pertain to the themes and motifs of this week's piece of content, which is, again, Apple TV Plus's Ted Lasso. So let's kick things off with our first light question round. Noah, I'm going to ask you to start with a question. I think that would be terrific. Yeah.
Hey, George, what are the odds, given what we have seen rumored on the internet, that we do get renewed for a season 4 of Ted Lasso?
Topical.
I would say that I would be extremely comfortable if they did a spin-off of that show. I think that is probably the direction that this is going, that like something like that would take, especially because the plot was resolved in a way that isn't necessarily as conducive to just picking it back up. I know that they could do it, but I don't think it would match the amount of elegance that went into the rest of the show's planning. So I think there's definitely a chance that we get more Lasso content, and I would 1,000,000,000% be on board with that. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that we're going to see it under the same banner as the content that we have right now.
Like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. That's fair enough. It's kind of a weird thing where it got
I'm sorry,
announced.
This was not your question.
Anyways, I'm going to just...
No, I'm sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it's weird how it was kind of... It wasn't even an announcement. It was just like... it was just like... George is giving me a lot of sass right now. It was just this almost leak where they basically said, yeah, some contracts have been signed and maybe they're gonna do something. And then some of the actors came out. Hannah Waddingham, I think, who played Rebecca, she said that yeah, they maybe sign some things, but that she's just as in the dark as everyone else on whether anything's actually going to happen. So it's kind of weird to be hearing about like studio negotiations so publicly.
Right.
So I'm really not sure what'll come of that, but yeah, I agree with you, George.
Awesome. All right. Keilan, I got a question for you.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Hey, Keilan, who's your favorite character on Ted Lasso, and why is it Roy Kent?
That is great. That is fantastic.
I honestly think my favorite character might be Roy Kent. I'm not even lying to you. I think if I sat here and thought about it for another 20 minutes, I would come up with Roy Kent. So yeah, I think my favorite character is Roy Kent. And I think he is. What you giggling about, Noah?
No, it's just the way I was just thinking about how he asked the question. Yeah. Call me out like that. Damn.
The listener can hear your exhales.
I was away from the mic.
Okay, I think Roy has a lot of merits as a character. I think that his character arc is pretty fantastic in that he starts out the show as very apprehensive to learn from Ted and very emotionally closed off in many ways, and then he sort of opens himself up to learning the lessons that Ted has to offer. He opens himself up to forming more genuine friendships and relationships, all while maintaining still his very comedic gruffness and apparent apathy, which he does dissect as the show gets deeper and deeper. But he's just constantly funny in everything he says. He just has such a hysterical demeanor, and yet you can find a lot of emotional value in his character as well. Especially I think when he goes on that whole arc of coaching, or no, when he quits being a football player, he goes to do the network gig, pundit, and then he goes back to coaching. I think that his kind of self-reflection and everything that happened during that time and how it was guided by Ted and Keeley and he kind of ended up back where he belonged, I think that is such a good arc. So that is why my favorite character is Roy Kent. Hey, Noah Boeyink.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. Do you prefer Rebecca and Sam or Rebecca and Bald Amsterdam Guy?
I think I prefer Rebecca and Sam, just because of the way that whole storyline came about, where like they were like anonymous on this dating app, and they just happened to match each other, like that and them being around each other a lot more often felt a lot more genuine for Rebecca to have, and there came several points during that time where she had to fight to keep. Well, I guess several points. There was one big point where Sam was offered to be bought so that he could go play in, was it Nigeria?
Right, in Nigeria.
And she was like, she was really, battling between what's best for Sam, like what he would want and what she wants for herself. And so I feel like that just got to be explored a little bit more, so that felt like a lot better to me, which is why I prefer it.
Yeah, fair answer.
Yeah. Who did I ask a question to? Did I ask a question to George? Okay. Yeah. Well,
bring it over
here.
here.
On the skin of my teeth here. All right, let's go.
Listener, brace yourselves for a great question.
And this is a segue into the next part. God, I'm not gonna lie. I don't actually have a question. Did someone else want to ask someone else a question while I'm thinking?
Sure. I'm gonna do something crazy here. Hey, Keilan, let me ask you.
Who is your favorite character?
No, I'll shoot George with a question real quick. So, what is your dream sitcom crossover with Ted Lasso?
Ooh, that's a good one. You stole mine.
You were about to ask me that.
Yeah.
I could tell. Yeah, if it could just be like a one episode crossover thing where the characters just appear and it is relevant to the plot, but it's just kind of like, there's those guys, what would what would you like that to be?
I feel
With your fingers.
like the answer to this, it needs to come with like a season of the show. Like I feel like because a lot of the more like flagship sitcoms have either gone on for like long enough that the characters are at different points in their like life cycle, in different situations.
Sure.
So if I were to like cross over the two, I would probably say
The Big Bang Theory.
I would probably say, to be honest, either Schitt's Creek,
Yes.
because I think that would be hilarious,
Yes.
or Veep. And Veep is would also be funny. Veep is ridiculously inappropriate and political, and Schitt's Creek is just amazing in every way. I think that the characters would mesh in a way that would be entertaining in both fronts, and it would just they would both be very very funny, but equally good.
Yeah, Schitt's Creek would be fantastic. I don't know how you would get those characters into the same world. Like,
If you could do it, though, if you could do it.
where is Schitt's Creek? What state is it in?
I want to say just like Pennsylvania. I don't know why. It's either that or like somewhere out like Midwest.
Wait, hold on.
No, there's
Is
definitely a location. Hold on.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Is
we
it like
have-
a Canadian show? Like, wasn't it produced by a Canadian network or something?
According to Google,
But that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but
network is CBC. I don't know what CBC is.
it's
Off the top of my head.
Canadian
Broadcast.
Canadian. Yeah.
Canadian. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. The connoisseurs of popular entertainment. Canadian broadcast Canadian.
No. Keilan, you're right. It's according to Google, Goodwood is a rural community about an hour's drive east of Toronto, located halfway between Lake Ontario and Lake Simcoe.
And Goodwood is.
Okay,
where
no,
Schitt's
okay.
Creek
It
is?
served as the setting for Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
So that's the town that it was filmed.
Okay, interesting. So it is in Canada.
Good on you. Good job. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I thought it was like in like Pennsylvania or like Idaho or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought it was Canada. Huh.
Schitt's Creek is a small settlement within the township of Elmdale in Ontario, Canada.
Nice.
Cool. All right.
George, you want
Let's
to
get back to
Noah
Ted
something?
Lasso.
Yes.
No, absolutely. I can shoot Noah a question. Hey Noah.
Yeah.
If you had to coach a sport that you have absolutely no knowledge of, there you go. You can't pick baseball.
Well, I wouldn't have picked baseball. To coach? No.
Badminton.
Okay, cool. A team sport again, by the way. What sport would you pick? You had no knowledge. You gotta coach it.
Okay.
There's an opportunity halfway across the world.
It's. I take it this also takes place in Europe, like you said. It's the same thing. Or?
Yes, but any sport can also be played in Europe.
Well, sure. Let's go ice hockey.
Ooh.
Ice hockey is pretty fast paced. Personally, I've actually never really been that into it. Like I was a bandwagon when the Blues won the Stanley Cup back in 2019. But I feel like the fundamentals of the game are something that I'd really like to enjoy. I just haven't or enjoy learning about. I've just never felt the push to learn it. So I'd say ice hockey.
That's how I feel about every sport, listener.
Yeah.
Ice hockey seems cool. It seems like a cool environment.
Yeah.
Just the idea that is happening on.
Like fights are legal.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
legit just punch the shit out of each other
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
It's crazy.
I saw one hockey game in Chicago, and yeah, there were like 2 fights. I'm like, this is just accepted.
Yeah. I know.
I
Okay.
look at rugby sometimes.
Okay. Keilan,
Yes.
if you could, oh Lord, no, okay. If you had to choose one of the coaches to coach you in a brand new sport that you know nothing about,
Okay.
who would you trust the most to teach you, or to coach you, I should say?
Okay. So Ted, Beard, or Roy?
Yeah.
I suppose. Okay.
Or even Nathan.
Or even Nathan Shelley. Nate the Great.
I don't think any of us would choose Nathan, though.
Yeah.
Just for the record,
yeah.
he's kind of a dick.
Yeah. I mean, even the healed Nathan at the end of season 3, I probably wouldn't go with. But I mean, Beard would be hilarious, but it would be such an unusual experience. I couldn't just have Beard one-on-one. Beard needs Ted to balance him out. Roy, if Roy's training of Jamie in season 3 is any indication of how he would train me, no thank you. So I would probably have to defer to Ted. And
just make sure you don't bring out Led Tasso.
I don't want Led Tasso coming
No,
after me.
he's worse than everyone combined.
Oh, exactly. No, that'd be... Yeah, no, Ted, because Ted is, I think, objectively a good coach. I think he supports all the players very much in their personal endeavors as well as the game and kind of how those intertwine. And I think he would be, I think he'd be like, a pretty good fit for me in terms of what I would need in order to learn something like a sport, which would be a very bold and daunting endeavor for me. So yeah,
that's why you guys have me. I'm the sports guy here.
Yeah.
I'm the one that could tell you about some sports.
I would have you train me, Noah, if I couldn't have Ted.
Hey, if it comes to track, I got you, man. If you just want to run, I got
you. Boys, is it time
for a segue?
I have indoctrinated them. I have gotten them into the bit.
No, well, I just wanted to know if there was to be that like second show that we mentioned earlier, and it did like. In my head, I'm thinking that it wouldn't necessarily focus on Ted.
Right.
I think that like a lot of shows like this, which are very kind of this. I don't know what the actual like technical way to describe this, but this show definitely has like a formula, or like I've seen shows like this before, and that's not like a bad thing. I'm saying like it's a still unique but very interesting formula, and I've seen it done where there's a tremendous amount of growth in every character, and then like there's very clearly a story that happens. There's no extraneous fluff that's just like thrown everywhere, and they just have this like very cohesive, actual like prime like engaging and interesting story that goes throughout the entire like couple of seasons, and then they end it gracefully and it's done.
I believe you're just describing what's called a good show.
No.
A well-written show.
See, I wouldn't say that necessarily, because there's some shows that thrive on the fluff. Like I have watched some fluffy shows before, and I have loved it. It has been like one of the most like they consistently rank highly, at least for me, in terms of like rewatchability and like how I can like come back and still kind of enjoy that feeling. But
totally.
This is a very tight show, and it's very cool. So when I was like thinking about like a spinoff or like the next step, I think that if they were to ever do this, I don't necessarily think it would focus on Ted. And I wanted your guys' thoughts, just like a little bit more about like what you think that would look like and why.
Well, so here's my thoughts on that. Is that I don't think with the way that the show ended, I don't think that it can focus on Ted nearly as much, if at all. Because I mean, he made the decision. He left the team. He left England to go back to his family. That was like the end of his story. You know, he was really feeling that fight between him. Like, do I want to stay here with this opportunity and this new family that I'm working with, or my actual blood relatives and my son, you know, who I haven't been able to spend time with since he moved here, and he was there for how long was the show? Like, time duration, was it like 4 years, 5 years?
What? I don't know. Was it more than 3 years?
How many seasons?
I don't know if each season is a year, though.
Yeah.
No, seasons of football.
Oh,
that they go
okay.
Right, I'm not sure.
There was one season in the first one. That's when they got like deregulated or whatever that word was.
Relegated.
Derelegated.
Relegated.
Yeah.
Derelegated. No, that's not a word. Derelegated is not a word.
Season 2 was another season, and season 3 was another season. So it's 3 years.
Yeah, I always thought so.
Okay. Well, either way, multiple years away from his only son.
Right.
For his work.
Yeah.
And so, what would they? I fear that if they try to focus on him, they'd be undoing a lot of that turmoil that he went through fighting with himself about that. You know, like he'd be fighting. The way I see it going would be he'd be fighting with himself about whether this is really what he wants, or if he wants to go back to England, which is just the entirety of season 3. So it would just be, it would just be the same as season 3, and I don't think it would hit as hard, at least with his storyline. With everyone else, I think it would work really, really well. We'd get to see Roy be the head coach. We'd get to see Beard work with Roy one-on-one more because Beard decided to stay for, what's her name?
Jane,
yes.
Yeah.
I could not remember her name for the life of me.
Yeah.
And so we'd get to see that dynamic flesh out a little bit more. Cause
I'm sure it would be a very healthy marriage.
Guys, they have the best relationship. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw nothing but mental fitness.
One of the best lines with Beard and Jane is when he's talking to the Diamond Dogs, and he's like, yeah, so the other day in Codependence Anonymous, and they're like, what? And he's like, oh, Jane makes me go with her. But yes, do go on.
Yeah, no, I just feel like if they try to focus any more of the story on Ted, that's the direction it would go, and it would I want to say ruin the character because that, that's very polar, but I don't think it would do him justice for what he went through by the end of season 3.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I wouldn't want to see that. I would want to see everyone else develop without Ted. See how that dynamic grows without him there facilitating it all.
Right, but you would kind of feel the echoes of what he left there, what the beliefs he instilled there.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something cool they did at the end of season 3 is that whole idea of when the students are ready, the master will disappear is kind of that quote they used, and he just sort of in that last episode he just kind of fades out of significance almost to AFC Richmond, and everyone kind of is having their own journeys, and they're able to. And when they all pull out their pieces of the belief sign and they put it together, it's almost like they had the belief, like they were able to do it even without Ted.
Yeah.
Like he gave them the belief, and so I totally agree with you. The only thing I'll say is, and I don't know how you boys interpreted this, but I always thought that in that finale, Ted seems a bit distant, almost a bit. Maybe he's having some internal conflicts. I don't know. I feel like the way it would make the most sense is if he was just content in his decision and he kind of just disappeared. But it almost seemed like, even down to that last shot where he's standing on the field with Henry, it almost seemed like he was not 100% confident in his decision. And that's just how I received it. And I've watched that finale a few times, and I can't help but observe that. And I don't know if you guys picked up on that or anything.
I don't know if I did. I mean, I will admit I haven't watched it in a minute.
Yeah.
But I don't remember feeling that way when I did watch it initially.
Okay.
I think it might have just been with everything else going on. I didn't necessarily focus on that. Like Rebecca sold like 49% of the team or whatever.
Right.
Everyone else got their, stories, like, I guess, foreshadowed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ted, even if he was feeling like still some conflict, it's an impossible decision. This life that you've spent 3 years building and are incredibly attached to, that's not just going to go away once you make a final decision. You're still going to be thinking about that. There's always going to be some sort of conflict in you. You're like, did I make the right choice?
Totally.
And that was like fresh off of when he got there. Like there was like almost no time passed between that shot and him leaving, I think. Right? Or was there like a time jump from that?
Sorry, from which shot?
Like the final shot where where he and Henry are.
Oh yeah. That was I think pretty shortly after.
Right. So like you make an impossible decision like that, you're not just gonna be like, well, that was cool.
Yeah. That makes sense. George, how did you interpret him in the last episode?
I would. This ties into like a bigger point. I think that one of the reasons why this show was so successful, not necessarily initially, it was successful initially because of all of the reasons why really good comedies are successful initially, which is it had a good premise, they were funny, that it was like shot well, the characters were all like developed good, and like it was fantastic. In that like first season, I thought was a lot of the classic comedy that we're like very used to, and that we are that we know well and good. Mm-hmm. I think that they could have taken that first season and made it a very fluffy show, as I would to say.
Yeah.
What I would say is, after that first season, there was a conscious decision to make this show a lot more real than I think that we give it credit for. I think that diving into like mental health and like kind of peeling back the images that we see of all these like great characters on the screen, where it's either somebody who like goes through life and just like walks on air, or it's somebody who's like getting absolutely pounded and they just drink a bunch and they're one of those like they're one of those characters.
Yeah.
I think that this show showed someone who was like actually kind of struggling, and they were handling it in like a very real way, in a very like adult way. Like I could see that situation happening to an actual person that I knew in a way that I don't really know if we have enough of, like adult people kind of doing, kind of behaving as adults and like trying their best in these kinds of real world situations. And it was still, again, it was like being the general manager of a football team in England is not everybody's everyday life, but it's definitely like you could see parts of yourself, and you could see like the human nature of all the characters. And I think that is like what we saw like earlier when we were talking about like Sam and Rebecca not working. Like again, that was another moment. It could have very well have been a very fluffy part of the show where like they were texting on the app, and they met and they realized it was them, and they were like, oh my god, and then they do everything that like every other comedy does, which is they hit it off and they start dating. But again, this really showed that like sometimes things like for some reason or another, like all of the spark, like all of the like everything doesn't align, and like the spark doesn't like hit exactly in the right spot, and like the lightning doesn't strike like 5 times all in like the exact right position. Sometimes it just doesn't like spark the way that like it would in other situations. Yeah. And again, that was a very real moment when like they both like when they decided not to do that. I thought that was a very real moment. And then like at the end, when you like, to get back to your like original question, like everybody has their own stuff. In that last episode, I don't think that like, I definitely think Ted was conflicted, but I don't think that they were like intending to show that. I think that he naturally faded away, like as you were saying, because the emphasis for like every other episode was on Ted for like a lot, or like Ted or like other people being guided by Ted. But that last episode was everybody's doing their thing. Ted is also there doing his own thing. And that is like the true finale, is like knowing that like, even though you're like a part of something bigger and you are a part and like a pillar of this community, and you're very clearly a pillar of this community, it is still like a pillar is only one part of a building. You can't just have like a pillar and then everybody is just like talking around it. There's other lives at stake. And I think that's like, that was the real kind of vibe shift. It wasn't necessarily that like Ted was conflicted. I probably would notice that again if I were to watch it again, but I think that the bigger thing was that there was a very clear emphasis on the fact that there are other people's lives there, and there are other timelines, and there are other like existences other than our own and other than that main character in the story. And those kind of not necessarily peripheral, but like surrounding existences in the show, which is literally called Ted Lasso, is like, that was the main focus of that episode, and that's what made it so unique and so interesting.
Well, and that's why Trent Krim writes the book The Lasso Way, and then Ted tells him to change the title because he's like, it was never about me. You know, it was never, this was never my story. This was everyone else's story. And he was, like you said, just one pillar of that, just one part of it. And And to get away from the finale, because we've talked most of this time just about this one episode, but I think like you were saying about the Sam and Rebecca thing, not working out in the most conventional way, and also not being just some fluffy like, oh haha, these characters got together and then they broke up. Isn't that like a funny random plot point? Which is one of the biggest criticisms of Joey and Rachel and Friends, as they were just kind of throwing something out there. I don't know if
my God.
I don't know if I fully agree with it, but that is in the rom-communism episode, if you boys remember. Ted says that line of it may not always work out how you think it will or how you hope it does, but it will work out. And that's a point I also wanted to mention, because it kind of goes with this notion that things may not work out in the predictable fairy tale way, but meaning can still be derived from the way that things do end up. And the show did not end in a perfect way for everyone. There was still conflict. I think Ted was still a little conflicted. I think, Roy, Jamie, and Keely, their whole love triangle was not perfectly resolved. I think that it ended on a important note where I think it prioritized sort of Keely's independence and her kind of self-worth journey over her just ending up with one of the guys. So I think that was good, but also it did leave things unresolved with those characters. And so, yeah, there was a lot of sort of quote-unquote unresolved things, but I think that is more realistic, and that goes with that idea that it may not work out how you expect it to or think it will, but still there can be a conclusion from which meaning can come. And that it reminds me of this quote from the movie Mr. Nobody, which is, you seen it, George? Which is, everything works out, even badly. And I think that is a fantastic
that's good
statement that Ted Lasso exemplifies pretty well.
So George, there was one thing that you hit on that I noticed as well when it comes to like the mental health aspect of it. A lot of shows don't necessarily touch on that, and if they do, they don't necessarily do it in the best way. I'm gonna draw some parallels here to another show that Avatar: The Last Airbender. All right, not necessarily mental health, but I noticed a few parallels, at least with story arc and addressing real world aspects in a fantasy or a fake way. So like specifically what I'm talking about is like Jamie's character arc is very reminiscent of Zuko.
Oh yeah.
You know, where he starts off as kind of like the common, I don't want to say enemy, but he's kind of just like a douchebag.
Yeah.
You know, and then he goes away for a while, and then he's slowly like being worn down by Ted and everything, but he comes back and he's just like one of the best. He can be a really good guy, which is, like I said, very reminiscent of Zuko and his story arc.
Ted was kind of like his Iroh in a way.
Yeah.
Almost like the father figure he didn't ask for, but that he really needed.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, and when George asked that quick round question of who's your favorite character and why is it Roy Kent, I thought of Iroh right there because, I mean, it's the same thing with Avatar. It's like, who's your favorite Avatar character and why is it Uncle Iroh?
Yeah.
You know? So, like, Roy was also part of that aspect, especially later on in the series, where he was that mentor that I almost want to say like calming presence. They had a much different dynamic than Iroh and Zuko, you know, in the end, it made them both. It made Zuko and Jamie better for what they were trying to achieve.
Totally.
And then the other thing with like the mental health, I'm equating that with like how they handled Toph and physical disabilities rather than like mental stress and anxiety and all that. Both shows handled those the best I have ever seen them being handled.
Yeah, facts.
Like with Toph, you kind of forgot that she was blind, you know, and they had an actively disabled child in there, the mechanic's son, who was in a wheelchair, who was able to move around just fine. And then they addressed, I lost my train of thought. They addressed Ted and his anxiety and his like going through that divorce and his turmoil going through whether or not he needs to stay or needs to go back home. All that, they handled that in a very real way that is relatable to a lot of people, which I think is like almost unheard of at this point. You know?
Yeah, because it's done in often very cliche ways, like
Yes.
George was saying, of having the one character who's just depressed or
Right.
you know, and deals with their problems in kind of the stereotypical way of drinking or whatever in the movie. But it's to do it in this way where it's so believable, and it's not these caricatures of people who are depressed or anxious. It's very nuanced characters going through it in a very believable way. And I also want to add to your point about Avatar that those characters, you're right in that they're depicted, characters with physical disabilities are depicted as being very capable, but also their disabilities make them who they are in a sense,
Right.
in a way that they're not defined by it in a negative way, but in a positive way, and it shapes who they become in a cool way. Like Toph's blindness really is her superpower.
Yeah.
I mean, she's able to see everything through earthbending and becomes pretty much the most powerful earthbender ever through being differently abled, you know? And that's also a point that Ted touches on with Colin's storyline with being in the closet and then coming out to his team. And he's like, and Isaac or one of the characters says, "Oh, we don't care about that," you know? And Ted's like, "Well,
We don't not care.
we don't not care."
Yeah.
It's not that we think it 100% defines you and we're going to look at you a different way, but we don't not care about the struggles you've been going through, and
Right.
we want to embrace this as part of who you are, and I think that's done really well through that storyline, through the mental health storylines, through all of it, and
No, I think like you said, the best way to I guess explain how, like, in simple, or not simple words, but like in just a few words, those aspects of them in both shows don't define who they are entirely. They are much
Right.
more than, like, you know, Toph's blindness or Ted's anxiety.
Exactly.
Or any of that. Like, both shows do an amazing job showing that is not their only defining characteristic.
Right,
They are
right.
much more than that, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love how good Ted Lasso depicted that.
Yeah, totally. While still saying it's still an important part of their journey.
Right, but
Yeah,
that's not all you are.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. The mental health piece in Ted Lasso, I mean, that's really a kind of a thread through the whole story. And I mean, season 2 is kind of the most that it's highlighted, I feel, in bringing on the therapist character, Dr. Fieldstone.
Yeah.
And literally having sessions and unpacking things with the different characters. I mean, that was really good, and that was really kind of wearing away at Ted's conditioning and his kind of aversion to talking about things, and because Ted is a very kind of classic example of like suppressed emotions and sort of just being a people pleaser, wanting to help everyone but himself. And I think that they unpacked that character type very well in season 2. And then I think throughout the show, really every season, they tackle, tying it back to Zuko and Ozai, they tackle like how we are influenced by our parents. And I mean, there's Ted's mom and Ted's dad who committed suicide. There's Rebecca's mom and her dad who was a cheat and did all these things that mess with her emotionally. There's Sam's dad and there's Jamie's dad, who are kind of polar opposites in terms of how they're involved in their sons' lives. I mean, they really show how these characters are influenced by those that came before them, and those kind of generational behavioral patterns are a big part of mental health. And yeah, I mean, I thought there's the episode about Ted's mom, I thought is one of the best episodes of the show.
Yes.
I think that ending scene where has this emotional outpouring with her, and he's like, "Thank you for this, but fuck you for this."
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's some heavy stuff, and that's so good, because it's like, that's really how it is. I mean, we, from our parents, from their parents, from our society, from everyone who had a hand in our upbringing, like, we're influenced in both positive and negative ways, and that's just part of existing. That's part of being a human, that you absorb your environment, and so it's impossible not to come out with different things from different people, and I just thought, again, they just touched on it in such a nuanced way, and
Yeah,
beautiful-
no,
beautiful episode.
I wholeheartedly agree that is one of the best, most, like almost dramatic episodes
Yeah.
of the series, and the way they handled that was once again fantastic.
Yeah.
George, you want to say something? You've been quiet for a little bit.
Yeah, you want to segue into something else over here?
Well, I speechified for a while, and now I'm just kind of relaxing.
I just don't want you to feel left out of the conversation.
No, it's all good. It's all good. The
Anyway, Keilan.
Yeah, I'd say I would agree with a lot of what's being said. I just think it's a very special show. It's like whenever I think of shows that I would recommend to people, I probably think of Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Especially because like it's an incredible fusion of like several genres, which I think has led to something pretty unique.
Yeah.
And I am going to remember the show, which is nice.
Yeah. I think it's like the sort of quintessential dramedy, in my opinion. I think it balances those beautifully. And there are I think most comedies, most sitcoms, they have drama and they have sort of more tumultuous storylines and all that kind of thing. But Ted Lasso, I think, is kind of a perfect example of a dramedy where it's equal parts comedy and drama. Like they go into some deeper territory that a lot of sitcoms wouldn't. And I think I've talked about it on other episodes. I talked about it in Deadpool and Wolverine about that balance of levity and intensity. I think it does it so well in a way that feels like life. It doesn't feel like an exaggeration of what could be in the real world.
All right, we've kind of hit on some deep, some deep and meaningful conversation. Can we get to more of the comedy aspect of this? I want to laugh some more. What are we doing?
Bro, May, hilarious. Took y'all a second, but okay.
I'm trying to remember who May is. But
May. Okay.
Yeah, she's the barkeeper.
Yeah. Listener, I just got the two blankest stares I've ever received.
He picked one of the most like out of all of the characters in the show. I'm not saying that May is a bad character, but out of all of the characters in the show, you really that's just wild.
What about Arlo?
That's wild to me.
Arlo?
Thoughts on Arlo? One of the two announcers. I'm reaching in the bag here, listener.
Listener, there's literally so much to pick from, and he's circling the very edges of the periphery of the show.
No, okay, so yeah, going back to May, dude, she was. You good? You all right? What's up?
Is it just an unknown number?
Oh.
You should take it on the air.
Yeah.
Ladies
and gentlemen,
tell him you're live. Tell him, answer it and say you're live on the Everything Club.
we got our first caller into the Everything Club.
Oh, wait, I do need to take this. This is my doctor.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Don't forget. Yeah, you'll have to knock. Yeah.
George had to step out for medical reasons.
Yep.
He is okay. He just had to take a phone call.
Yeah.
However, yes.
We're going to continue the discussion and hit on a ton of critical points, and then request that he understand exactly where he's entering from.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, May was thinking back on it now that I actually remember who she is. She was great. She was so both down with everything that went on with her bar, but also hey, you fucking stop that right now. I swear to God, I'll kill you. She gave off that energy where it's she cared about you, but if you crossed her, you were out.
Yeah.
The whole when Ted and Rupert were playing darts, that was just a thing that happened with the entire bar, and she was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
But also when Jamie came in and was talking to Ted while he was like, can I come back to the team and everything?
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, May, can you tell him to stop looking at me?
Yeah.
And she turns around and is like, oi, fuck off.
Well, also those three fans were hilarious.
Yes.
I love those as a staple in every episode. They were just always
they
there.
They were great. Ted Lasso had a bunch of I don't want to say background characters, but secondary characters that contributed to the show so well.
Yeah,
which is again hard to do, but they did it so well. They always had that comedy and like
Come back in, George.
like they always were able to hit the mark, being those side characters that they are.
Yeah.
You know.
And
So-
George, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that the side characters are very well defined. Actually, I think that it's very you can tell a lot about a show, about how developed and yet how developed a show, like a show's writers, can make a character while not giving them enough screen time to be actually developed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that May is like a great example of that.
This guy thinks we're still talking about May.
I know.
No, well, I was just circling back to before.
Just to circle back. George, I really hope you appreciate that layup I gave you with that last line there.
I appreciate that.
No, we were touching on the three fans that are always in the bar in like every episode.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
how they're
yeah.
really funny little side characters.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. I like how with those guys and with most of the characters, they always kind of defy expectations in really funny, unexpected ways. Like when the one guy, like the big dude, he's asked like what his greatest fear is, and he says it's snakes, and then the therapist is like, well, why is that? And he's like, well, because it threatens my ability to be in my garden with my tomatoes, and that's just my safe space. It's like the way they like drop stuff in there that you just don't expect at all is always really funny.
Yeah, those side characters, like at least with the three fans. I'm sorry, listener. What happened really, like in retrospect, really wasn't all that funny. But George is in a swivel wheelie chair, and he just dropped himself like an inch out of nowhere. It was, oh man. I don't know why that was so funny, but that got both of us killed.
Oh man, we need to make this a visual podcast one of these days.
I did
I
it
am
intentionally,
telling you,
listener.
I've been pushing for this. Get us the camera, put it in the corner, record it. It's awesome.
Yeah, we need to make that happen. What were we talking about?
That's a great question.
And welcome to the everything.
So before recording this episode, I kind of just made a list of like all the characters on my notes here because there's so many, and I didn't want to forget.
The last 2 minutes of this part of the podcast, it's just going to be him listing off the characters.
Keelan will now read their names.
Because I wanted to make sure we touched on all the important ones, and there's literally like 30 important characters that we didn't touch on. We haven't mentioned Danny yet. Football is life.
Oh, Danny. Oh, you know what we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, tell him.
So back in the last week of April, all right, I can't believe this has taken like an hour to get to.
Yeah.
But when I went up to Chicago for one of my last trips up there before Keilan moved back home, we went to Chicago Comic-Con, otherwise known as C2E2. And who else was there? That's not the way you say that. Who was there? Who did we meet, Keilan?
We met none other than Danny Rojas and Jamie Tart. Do.
Yes. So Keilan and I, George thought that he was too cool to go with us to Comic-Con. So he had to stay home and take finals.
I think the exact phrase he texted us was, I'm not a dork. Have fun, losers. I think you said something along those lines. But
That's wild. Oh my god.
But yeah, so yeah, we say we met them. It was for like 10 seconds tops.
Indeed.
We took a picture of it. We have photographic evidence that we were there in the same room as them. They were pretty cool. You decided to wear your one off Blue Lantern one that only appeared in the animated series.
I was indeed dressed as Razor, the niche character from the 2012 animated Green Lantern series. And not only that, I was dressed as the Blue Lantern version of him, which has only appeared in incredibly select comics. But I distinctly remember, and I feel terrible for forgetting. Do you remember the name of the actor who plays Danny? No. I genuinely don't remember his name, but I just remember him just looking at my face paint and just like this big smile coming across his face and be like, yeah, and he like gave me a fist bump, and I'm like, that makes me happy that Danny Rojas has now interacted with me in a Razor cosplay.
It's played by Cristo Fernandez.
Cristo Fernandez, yes, and then I believe
Cristo Fernandez.
Fernandez. And I believe Jamie is Phil Dunster, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yes.
No, so they're a couple of real cool guys.
They were.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a great time. That was probably the highlight of that trip, was being able to meet them, and I have that picture framed on my wall from CTV too.
Indeed. Yeah, that was a great time. But before we wrap up this
I'm sorry,
main discussion
we
round,
are now a minute over.
well, I just got to hit you with a couple other characters very briefly that were
I
that
feel
were
like
pretty
we
cool.
don't have.
I thought Zava was funny. I liked his big avocados. That's not an innuendo. I thought that Isaac was an excellent background character who kind of became a more prominent and important character. I thought he was funny every time. I loved the one line where Ted is talking about like some New Yorker cartoon or something, and then Zorro's like, "Oh, I'll print it out and put it on my fridge," and then Isaac goes, "Hey, that's copyright infringement, bruv." And that just lives in my head rent free.
Yeah.
Dr. Fieldstone, we mentioned her. I thought she's great. Trent Krim, The Independent, fantastic. Edwin Akufu, hilarious character. Really wild what they did with him in the last few episodes. Sassy Smurf was a good recurring one.
Dude, I forgot about Sassy.
Phoebe, Roy's nephew, she was hilarious.
Sorry, who?
Phoebe?
Roy's who?
Niece. I'm so sorry. I'm rushing here.
I was gonna say what?
And then I like the narrators, Arlo and the other guy, I don't remember his name. And then
Just Arlo.
yeah, just Arlo, and then and then I wrote
See, Keilan here has listed out all of the Ted Lasso characters.
and I wrote the 3 bar guys.
Yeah, we hit on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyways, just wanted to make sure no one was left unmentioned there. So yeah.
Well, you know what? If they want to see those characters, they need to watch the show, and then we won't have to mention them.
Indeed. Good
I
point.
said that very quietly.
Yeah, that's all right.
I apologize for the audio.
No, I'll boost it up in post. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
In the future, we should just run through all of the cast on every single thing that we do.
Should be a recurring segment.
We go line by line, and we give our brief thoughts on that character
In chronological order of appearance, including all extras as well.
That would be good.
Anyways, boys, I think it's time for a
Segue.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we peaked that so hard. Oh my god.
I'm gonna cut out the pause in post, so it seems like we did it instantly. Anyways, hey Noah, let me hit you with
Okay.
a deep question. So you briefly mentioned while George decided that his doctor was more important than us, the bar dart scene, the dart scene that takes place in the bar, and the doctor could be a she, Noah. God, this guy.
I apologize for my blatant misogyny and sexism. This does not reflect the integrity of the Everything Club or my friends. This is just me and my own person.
God. Oh my God.
I couldn't even finish the joke.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. I do not condone sexism or misogyny in any aspect, or even racism. Any kind of prejudice. is
Even
awful.
racism. Even racism.
Even canceled on episode 7, boys. We had a good run. So the dart scene, I thought, is probably the most iconic and possibly my favorite scene in the show. The way that Ted kind of gives that whole story of his dad throughout the playing the game of darts with Rupert, and he has the iconic line of "Be curious, not judgmental," which I think is such a good summation of Ted's character. So I wanted to ask Noah, is there anything in your life that you were once judgmental towards, but you were able to become curious and open yourself to it? And if so, what is that thing?
Ooh. I know you guys want me to say Legend of Korra, but
I know better.
We're not at that point yet.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a deep question.
Thank you. Yeah. I do my best.
Really hit the nail on the head. Good job. Oh man, I don't know.
Listener Noah is basically saying he's just judgmental about
I
everything.
judge literally everything. See, I'm trying to think of like specifically like a TV show.
Yeah.
Or something.
Could be a food, could be a place, could be a person, could be an abstract idea, could be a color, could be a sport.
Color.
I used to not be as big a fan of purple as I am now. Now look at me, purple shorts right now.
Oh, and you got your new shoes. All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have much of a deep. Okay.
Listener, I just want to point out, like, responding to that question with the answer, the color purple, would be unbelievable.
The color purple, like the movie, you mean?
Okay.
Based on the feminist book?
I am going to answer this because I do have a genuine answer now. I am actually going to go with school.
Ooh.
All right. Back in high school, or like, I guess when school was mandatory, there was only ever one subject that I really like look forward to, and that was history. I love history. But when when I graduated, I feel like a lot of people do this. They took for granted having all of their best friends and all their people in one spot.
Totally.
And specifically when it came to enrolling in college, for me, I've always said this about college. I did so well in college, not to toot my own horn. I feel I did a lot better for my grade wise, because I enjoyed what I was learning. Mm-hmm. I started actually paying attention to it for what it was. Mainly because it was coming out of my own pocket. I was paying for my own school. That if I didn't pass this was thousands of dollars I was losing. But when I started doing that, I realized just how much I was actually learning and retaining, which has led to my job currently. So I don't know if it's just like school in general or actually just paying attention to the education that you have, because it could really be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's what got me with history too, or I guess specifically like U.S. American history, and sports history is also really interesting to me. But I guess generally just like education and knowing things, like the pursuit of knowledge is something that I definitely took for granted and didn't see myself wanting to do. But here I am finding out that I actually really enjoy learning things. Learning things is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard because those during mandatory school years, learning and the pursuit of knowledge is conflated with it being forced upon you.
Yeah.
It's you have to do it. You have to learn about these subjects, and your more individual interests are less important than just getting this general education.
Right.
So yeah, I've had a similar revelation that, hey, I actually like knowing more things. That's not an inherently bad thing. It's actually kind of cool to learn like how the world works and stuff. Yeah, no, I feel that. That's a great answer, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, George. All right. Once again, skin of my teeth here.
Oh boy.
Let's hear this deep question.
Oh, man, I'm so hyped.
Okay, so the friendship between Isaac and Colin is one that we didn't necessarily get to see the depths of until Colin fully came out to everybody. That caused a huge rift between the two for a while, because Isaac was just really upset. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me? We're brothers." So have you ever no, okay. I was gonna say, have you ever had a secret like that? But
whoa.
It's a somewhat veiled question.
I know. So
no, let him cook.
Let me cook. I'm in the kitchen right now. The stove's on. Let me cook. Do you see yourself having that sort of reaction with a secret from like one of us? Like, do you see yourself reacting that way if we told you a groundbreaking secret like that?
I had a moment very similar to this, actually.
I guess this is a good question then.
At the lake trip, actually, when one member of this group, one of our co-hosts, suddenly revealed to the rest of us
he was studying
that he was a philosophy major.
Oh, yeah, philosophy.
You still don't remember?
Hey man, I knew it.
I remember. I was never told. And I did. I was fake mad for
A while.
I'm still fake mad, to be honest. And it's been a couple of weeks.
I literally didn't even know what, because as soon as he said the big secret, George just looked at me, and I just didn't know what was gonna come out of his mouth. But it was the philosophy major thing. Yeah, listener, I'm a philosophy major. I've been studying philosophy for a couple of years. I was literally writing philosophy papers today. This is something I do. These guys somehow didn't know.
He didn't tell us.
Listener, I want this known. We talk a lot. This was never mentioned. Not one time. And it definitely.
You're picking it so hard.
My passion. It definitely should have been.
So the answer to your question, Noah, it seems, is that he would react with outrage. Pure fury.
I very much understand Isaac's reaction when you're put in like in a situation like that where you're part of this, especially after Ted came in as well. When everybody's growing a lot closer and you're very much like ideally part of a family. It can be quite jarring when somebody just reveals something out of the blue that's fundamentally quite not necessarily central to their identity, but close enough to who they are that it is strange that it didn't come up before. Not necessarily that it has to be like an intentional thing. Maybe it just never came up organically. But it is very. This
is starting to feel a little.
Pointed. I very much understand the idea, the reaction of, dang, wait, we really just never we never talked about that.
But it's like such a big part of who they are, that you would think that it would come up at least, like, or they would feel comfortable sharing that information with us,
That's true.
Listen, you think just because I'm a philosophy major, I'm just gonna be spouting Descartes left and right? Like, what are we doing here?
You've been quoting more things recently. I've noticed.
He even knows who Descartes is. That has never come up before.
You just used the word Descartes. Or the name Descartes.
The word Descartes.
The word.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I do think I understand the sort of the emotions underlying Isaac's reaction, but I also
I'm sure you do.
I also think Isaac's
He's
decision.
Seen it in full time from the other perspective, right?
I think Isaac's decision to sort of alienate Colin a bit and wait for Colin to be the one to reach out, as opposed to Isaac maybe anticipating that it was a difficult thing for Colin to discuss. I think that was maybe where he went wrong, but I think the emotions underlying it.
Yeah.
Not to hijack your question here. I'm so sorry, George. It's your turn.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously the Isaac Colin situation was significantly more high stakes and like more emotional than
the philosophy major.
Than the philosophy major reveal that we're talking about.
I don't know.
Right now.
I think they're one and the same.
I think that that very clearly speaks for itself. But I'm just saying, like, I could definitely understand like both sides' reaction to that. Hey, Keilan.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Ted Lasso doesn't shy away from showcasing like failure. I think that's also something that makes the show pretty real.
Yeah.
Like Ted's marriage, Jamie, like is seeing his like struggles with his father, and Nate's like descent into evil. What lessons about failure do you think that the show conveys? And do you think that like a lot of what we saw is like more can be like more universally applied to like other parts of our lives?
Good question. Yeah. Well, I think it ties back to the point we made earlier in the episode about failure. When things fail or when things go wrong, you can sort of interpret it as disappointment, or as, well, it didn't go how I expected, so it's bad. Or you can sort of interpret it as this is the way that things went, and I'm going to build from here. And I think that's kind of the integral lesson of Ted Lasso is the whole be a goldfish thing. You fail, and things don't go how you expect, but that reaction of, oh no, this isn't right, you should, no
Good
respect.
Lord, ladies and gentlemen.
We get no respect here.
I probably didn't even pick up.
Yeah.
It didn't for us.
Yeah. Listener, there was just a very loud clunk outside of this public recording facility, and I am offended. No,
Be a goldfish.
Yeah, be a goldfish. I was a goldfish just now. I forgot what I was talking about.
That's not what you should have been a goldfish about.
Yeah, so I think the idea of being a goldfish, forgetting that knee-jerk reaction after failure and picking yourself back up is very integral to Ted's philosophy. And I think in terms of how it can be applied to other areas of our life, I mean, we see it in the sport, we see it in like you said, his marriage, his relationship. I think that failure is it's to be expected in every avenue of life. I think that's part of existence is things not going as you anticipate in your work, in your creative life, in your romantic life, in your relationships and friendships and your health and whatever it may be. I mean, things are not always going to go as you anticipate, and they're not always going to go the way that society might tell you they'll go, and you might consider that a failure. But yeah, I think really the show proves that the only failure would be to not continue, to not learn from it, to not keep going. So yeah, that's what I'd say. George, you're not going to believe this, but I literally had written down here a question that directly riffs off of what you just said, which is, what is something in your life that didn't have the conclusion you expected or hoped for, but had a conclusion from which you still derived meaning?
Oh, it related to my question.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant like something that I had like not that I had proposed, but something that I said. I was like, when?
Oh, no.
I feel like a lot of, at least my personal journey, has ended in different locations that I had necessarily anticipated. I'd say that I have like an overall direction, but I keep myself incredibly open because I really want to learn as much as possible. And I think that like just throughout my life, that's a life goal of mine. I want to absorb more information and like take and take meaning out of it and like and alter my life because of that. I think that that's an incredibly powerful and inherently good thing to do. And that, I would say that one thing that had like the conclusion that I didn't anticipate was probably like a lot of experiences in college where I was pulled in to either an organization or like an event at the last possible second, and it ended up like spiraling into like a multi-year commitment or something that I wasn't expecting at all, but I put like a lot more time and energy and thought and everything into it. The greatest example of this could be like some of the clubs that I joined. Like I agreed to have like a 5-minute conversation, and that spiraled into like 3 years of like dedicated work every single week. And I think that's very beautiful. I think that there's a lot of as long as it's handled well, both like in terms of like your time and in terms of like your attitude, I think that can be something that's incredibly powerful and rewarding.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, I think that relates back to Ted and to other sitcoms of that have kind of like the workplace dynamic where, like Superstore is a prime example of this, and so is Schitt's Creek, where the people that you end up spending time with and years of your life with are people that end up mattering to you, and those relationships, even if you resist them and even if they're not the people you would have expected yourself, like the Roses never thought they'd be friends with the Shits, but
I don't know if they were ever really friends with the Shits though.
I think by the end of it there was a bond. I would say.
I would 100%. I think that we use the word friend a lot. Like, I use the word friend a lot looser than like most people would. Like like if I have camaraderie with someone, I would say that they are my friend.
Yeah,
like,
that's more so what I mean. Not that they were like inextricably bonded for life, but just that they did share a lot of experiences together, and they had a bond because of that. And I think that Lasso does that in a cool way, and that is very true of life. Like, never know where things are gonna go. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah.
Are we gonna segue into this conclusion?
Oh yes.
Noah, you took us in. You want to take us out?
I will. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening in on this week's episode of The Everything Club. I had a fantastic time once again talking with my two best friends, my two bromances. Don't worry, Keilan, it's okay. But I had a great conversation today, boys. I had a great time, like I said, and I can't wait to come back next week to see what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And listener, just remember, be curious, not judgmental, especially when it comes to the color purple.
And philosophy.
Alrighty, folks. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.